Hi folks, this video illustrates the replacement of the front of house rack CPU. On the left, that's our front of house rack, and on the right, our front of house CPU module. We'll start by removing the 18 screws that hold the front panel on a front of house rack with a number 1 Phillips screwdriver. Front panel is off. And now we'll carefully disconnect these cables, and it's always a good idea to take notes of the connector location. This is J1. This is J2. If you have a second snake card, you probably need to disconnect the power connector to the second snake card, and also the data connection that would be connected to the second snake card. Next step is to disconnect the cables shown in the picture. The P1 connector is usually glued in place, and the glue is easily removed with some isopropyl alcohol. So if we just brush some alcohol on the connector itself, give it a few seconds, and then remove the glue with a pair of pliers. Same idea applies here. It would be a good idea to take down notes of the cables and their location. Removing the power connectors. It's not necessary to remove the power to the fans, to the two fans. And this connector that goes to the first I/O card is already disconnected at the bottom, so it's not necessary to remove it. If there are any cable ties securing the cables against the chassis, we need to cut those. And disconnect the power to the optional cards. Eventually these cables are also cable tied to the chassis, and we would need to cut those as well. Our next step is to remove the eye lock, cutting the cable tie. Now we need to remove 13 screws from each side of the FOH rack. Screws are located here at the bottom section. Now we'll do the same thing on the other side. Now using the same screwdriver, we'll turn the FOH rack around. In the middle section of the back panel, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws. The top section of the FOH rack should now be easily lifted away. Most FOH CPUs do not come with mixed engine cards, so you will need to move the mixed engine cards from the old FOH CPU to the new FOH CPU. Now we need to remove the TDM flex cables. So we carefully disconnect from the two cards and remove the connector. And we need to remove the screws securing the two cards. Two cards in this case, there could be more, depending on your actual system. We also want to make sure the bracket on the right hand side of the rack holding down the cards is removed. And at this point we're ready to remove the cards and transfer them to the other front house CPU. And we'll install them exactly the same way. We'll reinstall the TDM flex cables. And insert the screws. We probably want to cut any cable ties securing the cables and have them ready to be connected to the top section. Reinstall the bracket securing the mixed engine cards. Now, without cables accommodated towards the inside of the FOH CPU, we're ready to bring back the top section of the FOH rack and carefully install it, taking care not to damage any of the cables or internal parts. And now we reinsert the eye lock and install a cable tie to secure it properly. And with that, we're ready to reinstall the screws and reconnect the cables. We're now ready to reconnect the cables using the notes that were taken in the first few steps, and also inserting any cable ties that were removed to secure the cables back in place. With all the cables reconnected, we're now ready to reinstall the front panel, and this completes the FOH CPU replacement.